All right, so we are here today with Brenda. Brenda, it's a pleasure to have you. Um, as far as I know, you came to me with a goal in mind. You wanted to lose weight. You had hit a point where you were tired of feeling the way you were feeling. And I remember when you came to me, uh, we had this conversation, and you were super excited. And then something happened along the way where you were like, this guy's gonna make me fat. He's feeding me way too much food, and you were scared for a little bit. So first off, I want to go ahead and introduce you and let the crowd know a little bit about yourself. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Brenda. I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 this year. I was born and raised here in Watsonville. I work two jobs currently, one here in town, another one in Los Gatos. And I've been just super involved in my community since forever, really, between sports, dance, and just a lot of other activities that I did growing up. I have two dogs, and so I really love hanging out with them and kind of taking them to the beach. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's not much to me. It's always a little weird to talk about yourself, so we'll keep it at that.
Well, I'll ask the questions then. I'll lead the conversation. So let's go ahead, and I do want to let the crowd know a little bit about what it was like as you growing up. I want to dig a little deeper and find out what your childhood was like. What was your fitness experience like as a child? Were you a very active child? Did your parents encourage you to move? Did your parents have any type of insight on nutrition? What were your plates looking when you were a kid? And growing up, did anybody talk to you about nutrition or explain to you like this is what a protein is, this is what a carbohydrate, or was it just like this is what the food that you're going to eat and eat it?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of four. And so growing up, my mom's an educator, and so I was constantly involved in something. So, like I said, I did sports, I did karate, I got into dancing. So I was always relatively active. My brothers and sisters were as well. But when it came to food, it was more just about, we were a family of six. And so it was just about whatever food is on the table, that's what we're eating. I think that my mom really tried to just make our food last, right? And making sure that we're all being fed and that we're not hungry and that we're going to school on a full stomach and not kind of struggling. So what that meant was that sometimes there wasn't a lot of like vegetables involved. It's, we had beans, we had rice, quesadillas, just things that lasted a long time. They didn't go bad in the fridge, and also things that we could prepare ourselves as kids. My mom was working two jobs. My dad was working, so often, my brothers were making food or I was making food for us. And so it was just about what foods can we prepare easily, and that are accessible to us. So I wouldn't say that it was like, hey, like this is a carb and this is a fat and this is a protein and this is where you're getting your energy from. It's just like, hey, this is the food and this is what we're eating. And that's kind of it. There wasn't a lot of thought process for us as kids, I guess, on that side of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, at what point in your life did you start paying attention to the mirror, let's say? At what point did weight become an issue for yourself and you were like, okay, I need to make some changes? When did you become aware?
Yeah, probably when I was, I would say maybe like 12 or 13. You're getting into like middle school. And like I said, I grew up dancing, and so going to places to get fitted for my folklorico dresses was a thing, and we were going in groups with, the other girls that I was in the group with. So I think I really started maybe hyper focusing on it at that age because I was always just on the chubbier, like heavier side. And so that was something that I have been aware of for like most of my life, to be honest.
When would you say was the lowest point in in your life when you said, okay, I need to start making changes? And what were those first changes that you made as a young adult?
Um, like when I got serious about it, or just in general?
Just in general, like, at some point, I think nowadays we see kids more, right? As the years go by, kids start to see their parents trying to lose weight, right? And they see their parents' insecurities, and it really passes on to the
Yeah.
children. At what point did you were like, okay, I need to jump on a diet?
Yeah, like 13. Like, to be honest, like I've probably been on and off, like attempting diets for the last 20 years of my life, probably.
What are some of those diets that you tried?
Well, I think that when I was younger, it was just really about not eating and energy drinks and not really eating lunch. There was no real like rhyme or reason. Like I was just like, oh, I'm eating too much, so let me just not eat. And I think that's what it was like at a younger age. As it progressed kind of into like college, there's a little more research behind it, but still, right, there's a lot of caffeine involved, because I found that caffeine really suppressed my hunger, so I could be super amped up on caffeine, awake to do my homework, and not eating. And so there haven't been too many like real research. Like there's been obviously the keto that I've tried, which worked for a real short period. I've done the like Atkins, Whole30. I've gone down the Instagram list of diets for sure.
And what was the number one thing in common with each one of them?
They didn't work. I just couldn't keep up with them, honestly. They stopped working at some point, but at some point I probably took myself out of the game super soon too. So that was that.
Okay. So prior to Envision, I know that you trained with another gym. So you had previous training experience. Did they offer nutrition as well?
So not formally. There was conversations. I think when you go into gyms, there's always going to be conversations about nutrition. And I was pointed towards resources that I could use, which was all super great, right? The information was there. I just had no idea what to do with it, or I thought that I did, and so I would get super excited, figure out like my numbers, my macros, all this stuff, and then that's as far as I would get, because I had no idea what to do with that. One, I had no real idea of where I was starting, because I didn't know. It's like I would calculate numbers. I'm like, okay, all of a sudden I have to eat 1,900 calories. Okay, but I don't know what I'm eating, right? Or maybe I'm eating those calories.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to change? I just didn't really know what to do with that information and how to apply it for it to make sense, or for me to even feel comfortable and confident like in attacking that task.
Okay. Now, when you decided to reach out to Envision, right? You reached out to me. What made you do that? What were the causes that you were like, okay, I need guidance, I need help?
Yeah. So when I reached out, I had already lost some weight, and I had gotten to a place where just nothing was happening anymore. But prior to that, like in those 6 months that I was doing work, I'd been going through a really tough time. So my Nino had passed away from brain cancer. So I was kind of dealing with like all the emotional trauma of that. I had just taken myself out of a like really toxic relationship, and so I was dealing with those two super like emotionally charged topics and trying to manage them, and it was rough, because for a minute all the capacity that I had was like work, sleep. Like I did not want to go outside. I did not want to be like around people. I was in a whole, I wasn't living in Watsonville. I had moved, so I wasn't around like my people. And so I felt super isolated. I was dealing with just a lot, and food was just kind of, I would eat and then I would just not eat, right? There was no middle ground. There was no grabbing, like, oh, I'm going to grab a salad. No, it's like, I'm going to grab pizza and wings, right? Like, it was just, it made me feel better, I guess, emotionally. And so I got like my little like 5'2" frame to like 200 pounds. And after we buried my Nino, like I had a week where I just went through and like felt like all of the emotions of like the past 6 months. And when I tell you that it knocked me on my ass, like it knocked me on my ass. And then one day, like it had just felt like, if you're ever out like in the ocean, in the water, like I was just trying to stay above like those waves. Like I was just treading, but those waves kept coming and you get tired so quick. And so I was just treading and I was just treading and the waves keep coming. And at some point I was like, you know what, like forget it. Like I just let myself sink because I was just so tired. But then like there was a moment where I'm like, okay, like I've had my break. I've let myself feel it. Like what happens next, right? Like what do I do with this? And that's kind of when I came up for some air. And I was like, okay, screw it. Like I just need to put one foot in front of the other. Like that's literally it. Like if that means that I go for a walk today, that's what that means. If that means that like I eat something healthy today, that's what that means. Like, and I'm just going to focus on that day. So I kind of started on that progression, and I was on that for about 4 or 5 months. And after that, that's when I got your contact information. And I was like, okay, like I'm in a good place. Like I had been consistently working out. I had been doing what I could with my diet. And at some point I just didn't know what else to do, but I had seen enough progress and I had gotten myself to a mental space where I was like, all right, like I'm going to be good. And it felt like I had some control of my life again. And I like wanted to hold on to that like so desperately. So I contacted you, and then from there we just got to here. That was just kind of my thought process and kind of how it went through being back there to contacting you to here.
8 months later.
Yeah.
It's been 8 months with us. Now, coming in, what were your
Can we take a second?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's the worst thing.
Oh.
And you're good.
Coming in, what were your biggest fears?
I think some of my biggest fears with working with a coach was like, what diet am I gonna get that I haven't already tried, and having those thoughts of like, I've already tried it, right, and it's not working for me. Like I'm just super weird. Nothing works for me. And so I think that was one of the things. It's like, okay, like I'm going to be investing money into this, right? Is it going to work, or is it going to be like other coaches that I had hired in the past that, cool, it was great for like the first 3 months, and then after that, it just went right back to normal, or what my normal was. So I think that was a fear of, all right, like, is this really going to work? Is it not going to work? Like, am I just blowing my money right now?
Yeah, so explain to me. So I'm going to bring up that first month, right? The first month, I think when a lot of our clients come to us, there's a lot of excitement. And the fitness industry has given people so many diets, right? There's a lot of coaches that just prescribe you a diet. It's like, okay, follow this and you're going to get amazing results. And some people do, and you know, they do get the results. Obviously, we put you in a calorie deficit, we adjust your macros, you follow it, you're going to get results. But the problem is that after the diet is done, the client leaves, right? The client comes out of there and says, okay, thank you, coach, I feel great, I think I can do it on my own. Reality hits. they don't know anything, right? They don't know how that coach adjusted their calories. They don't know how to calculate macros. They don't know what a protein is. They just knew that if they follow that, they would get results. And maybe they got results for a week, and then it all came apart. That first month for you, reality hits you, right? Envision was something different. We weren't doing diets, and so we gave you a macro prescription, and we said, okay, these are the changes that we're going to make in your life. I think the first thing that we became aware was that you were extremely undereating, right? We calculated your maintenance level, right, which I believe was like 2,500, and then we identified that your food was at like 700.
It's my breakfast now.
Right, and it was like, I still remember it. It was like a banana, it was a protein bar, and it was like a small meal with no carbs, and that was it.
Sounds
and
accurate.
I remember you telling me in your intake form, and I was writing it down. I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, okay, what's next? And I was like, and then you were like, that's it, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so, how was that when you received that macro prescription and you were like, oh my God, that is the amount of food that I need to consume, right? We went from like processed food, healthy processed food that you were consuming, to whole foods, and then you realize that the volume of food just increased. What were those feelings? What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, it was super overwhelming. I mean, to first, figuring out how much food I'm supposed to be eating, like when I'm trying to stay under 1,000 calories to getting something at like 2,500, I'm like, this dude's crazy. How is that even going to work, right? Like, I had all of these like initial thoughts around it. And then on top of it, it was also really overwhelming to feel like, hey, there is no real, I don't have a specific diet plan, right? Like, I'm not being told, like, you can't eat this, like, eat all of this from, like, these categories, right? And it was just an insane amount of food that I had never really learned how to put a meal together, right? So I'm like, how do I, like, what... That was a fear. Like, what if I mess up, right? Like, I have a list of food that you said is okay, and I still had this fear of like, I'm gonna screw this up somehow. Can you just tell me what to eat, right? Like, that was, I think, something that I wanted earlier on, because I can follow instruction, but having to take responsibility, that also made me accountable. And I remember that there was like classes that we were going to learn about macros, and I'm like, this dude's making me go to class, like on top of work and on top of everything else. I was like, I don't know about all this, but it was good, because all of those fears that I had from, eating all of that food. Obviously, I didn't go up to 2,500 super quick. Like, it took me a while to get to that point. But I started feeling better. I realized that I wasn't gaining weight. So once I started seeing that I wasn't gaining weight, I'm like, okay, like I can definitely eat more. And I started getting more comfortable with that. But there was also a point where you told me like, hey, don't work out as much. And I think that really, like, it took me into like a panic mode. I'm like, I've never been told that I work out too much. Like, you're telling me that I need to triple the amount of food that I'm eating and cut down the amount of time I'm training. Like, I was like, this dude's tripping. like I can't. And there was a moment where I was like, am I really gonna do this? Like, is this gonna work? Because at this point, everything says eat less, train more, eat less, train more. And this dude's telling me the opposite, right? Like, am I going to stick with this? So I had to have a conversation with myself about like, Bren, you've been doing this for like 20 years and like nothing has worked. Literally, is it going to kill you to do 3 months of this and just kind of see how it goes? And so that's what I did. I just kind of like focused and took a deep breath and said, okay, don't work out today and eat the food, right? And it was super like mind-blowing kind of where that's gotten me. So.
Yeah. So to explain that phase, what you went through when you came to us was what we call a reverse diet, right? A reverse phase. And what our objective was to start increasing your calories, right? We knew that you had to be at 2,500 at one point. And it could have been in 3 months, it could have been in 6 months, it could have been in a year. But we had to get you out of that hole that you got yourself into. And I remember having this conversation with you. I was like, there's 3 possibilities that are about to happen. Your body's going to respond very well. As soon as we start increasing calories, you're going to drop weight. Or your body is going to hold its weight. Or the worst possibility that a client will see is you gaining weight. But this has to happen regardless, right? If you gain weight, you have to stick with it, because what happened was you put yourself in a deep hole, right? You brought your calories so low and your output of energy was so high. And so hormones were disturbed, right? Things weren't functioning properly anymore. And as a coach, we don't know how long this process can take for a client, right? And so all we can really do is start introducing nutrients, start introducing a variety of nutrients, so that way you can get more functions, right? The functions come back to normal. And in this phase, 6 months, right? I think it was a 6 months phase that we did. We started increasing little by little. 1,200, I think, was our first target, and that was a challenge. Then we went to 14 and 16, and we were just doing small little 200 calorie increments, right? And I remember you hit one point where you were like 1,900, and I was like, wow, like, I think at 2,100, actually, it was like you are eating 3 times the amount of calories, which means that you're probably eating 6 times the amount of volume in food. And at this point, you were already doing strength training, right? We got you into strength training, and we started teaching you, progressive overload, and you started getting stronger. But even in the 6 months, your weight didn't really change at all. And I'm sure that must have been really, really frustrating.
It was definitely frustrating. And I think that, like, earlier, like the first part of those 6 months was like the most frustrating thing, because I went into this, right, like, I'm trying to lose weight. Like, that was the main goal. That was the focus. And so, like, my body was changing, and I was like, yeah, cool. But my weight wasn't, and I'm like, what? Like, what is happening? What does that even mean? Because I was just still super focused on this scale, on this number. Like, I'm really trying to come after this goal. And, like, it's super great that my body is changing, and I was stoked for it. But I still wasn't ready to just, like, fully celebrate that. I was like, okay, but what about the scale? And so it was really frustrating. And it got to a point where it's like, I think I dropped my first pound, and I was just super stoked on it. I was super stoked on it, and it probably was actually even like half a pound, not even a full pound. But once, like, the scale, even if it was like a half a pound to a 1 pound, like, I was just so excited for it, because it felt, I wasn't starving. I wasn't having a terrible time. I wasn't deprived, right? Like, I was still going out with friends. Like, I was still enjoying a drink here and there. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm on a diet, I can't do this. So it's like I was having a great time, my body was changing, and the scale was dropping. And so that's kind of when my mind started shifting. Like, okay, you know what? Like, I am willing to take, like, quality of life right now over a drastic change on the scale. Like, overall, like, I'm sleeping good. Like, my mood swings aren't crazy. I'm funner to be around. Like, I'm enjoying the process, and I'm not so stuck on just, like, looking at one metric, right? But yeah, like, the first couple months were definitely frustrating.
Those were tough, definitely. I think for coaches, those first 6 months are so important, right? We understand that they're very important for a client, but we also understand that there's a very high risk of this client leaving, because they're going to give up on it. We know what's going on. We know that if you just stick along, if you do it long enough, the results will come. But the client hits a point where they just get so frustrated and they walk away. And I say this to every single one of them. Many clients are like maybe 1 week away. Maybe that next week was that half a pound. You could have walked out and you had been back to square one, right? And you decided to stick along, and all of a sudden it was like one day it just started clicking.
Yeah.
Things started clicking, right? You started dropping weight, the scale started moving, the body started changing, right? You were training, your strength was going up, progress was happening, and I think that brought a lot of confidence in you, and you were like, okay, I believe this guy. 6 months later, it was like, okay, we can get along now. He's not trying to make me fat. He's actually trying to help me out. And I think that's the biggest turning point for a client. When they understand that, progress is so easy from there on, right? Obviously not as easy as it's not that easy, but there's hope now. There's like, okay, we can do this. And so tell me a little bit about your accomplishments and what has happened in the last 2 months, because from what I'm aware is you decided to go ahead and take a nutrition course that is going to set you on the path to become a nutrition coach. And what made you make that decision?
Yeah. So just this whole process has been really, like I said, just like really mind-blowing. Like I've learned so much. And just people are asking me a lot of questions, right? And I never thought that I was going to be someone that's like, yeah, I can help you. I never saw myself as that person, but through just like conversation, I'm like, oh, hey, like I kind of do know stuff, right? Just because I've gone through the process. And so, yeah, like you had sent me like a link for like, hey, like check this out, right? So I did a little bit of research and I'm like, okay, like I think I could do this, right? And if it's not something that I turn into like a profession that I'm doing, like it's still really good knowledge for me and for those that are near me. So I took it. It was a really amazing course. I learned so much. I think that I got a lot more application for like others, because I think that when I'm going through the process, right, everything is just applied to me and I'm taking it in as an internal thing for me. Going through the course, I'm like, oh wow, like this really is for everyone, right? Like I'm not like a unicorn. And so that was really exciting. So I'm kind of going through, I have like a guinea pig right now that I'm taking through the process as well, and we're doing really great, and it feels super awesome to have enough knowledge and I guess to inspire someone to want to kind of go on this journey, and then also that they trust me. It's kind of a heavy weight to have, but I'm stronger now, so I can totally do that. But it's been fun, and just like being able to see someone go through their own progression and have them have their own accomplishments. Like I think that that's really big for me. And like over the last couple months, like I've just gotten a lot stronger. Like I did like 150 pounds for 8 on my squat the other day. Like my bench presses with the dumbbells.
What was your previous squat before?
I don't know. I think I came in here at like 90.
90.
I think it was like at 90. And like I couldn't do 40s for a bench press, and now I can. So it's been really awesome to just kind of see how my body is changing, and I literally, like 95% of me just doesn't even care about the scale. Like awesome. I just don't, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this progress. I want to hear this progress with your new guinea pig, right?
Yeah.
And a guinea pig is in this NCI course with Jason Phillips. They put you through a course, and then they have you work with a client, right? Work with whether it's a friend or somebody else that you know, so that way you can go ahead and practice. You, a person that believes that, didn't really have that much knowledge, or how would I ever even be able to coach someone? You started your guinea pig, and how much progress have you guys got?
Yeah, so over the last about month and a half, she's dropped about 8 pounds. She's not on any kind of like restrictive diet, so we're really just going through, what I learned of like, hey, let's learn how to properly manage our meals and properly create a plate of food and like a balanced diet, right? Where you're getting your energy source, you're getting your proteins, like you have all of the nutrients that you need for the lifestyle that we're living. She's eating a lot more than what she did before. She has energy to hang out with her kids and play with her kids. She's not crashing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like, you have kids, you want to be able to like be out and about, and so she's feeling so good. And it's super rewarding to see that someone's quality of life is improving, and that you kind of had something to do with it. Like, that's, I don't know, it's weird and it's cool, and it's just still like surreal for me to think that like I help someone with that.
It's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. That feeling never gets old. It'll stay. Every time that person comes to you with a big smile and you know like they're feeling good, it never gets old. It gives you butterflies in the stomach, and you know, as coaches, I think that's the one thing that has kept me in the game. And the more I do it, the more people I want to reach, and so now we're at a point where, you know, Envision is continuing to grow, and so I had this one thought and this idea, and I was like, well, if all these clients are making these amazing transformations and they're going through it, why can't they become a coach, right? I would much rather hire in-house and have this place be a transformation place, but not only that, a stepping stone for a change in life, in a lot of people's lives, right? A change of career possibly, and I like to present that as an option to a lot of my clients and say, hey, I have one of my coaches, Jenny. She was a client of mine, and now she's one of my best coaches, right? People love her. She understands it. She went through the whole process, and so that is what we like to push here. And you know, to tell us a little bit about what your future goals are. Now that you know that you can become a coach, right? I made an offer to you, and I opened my doors to you. Tell me a little bit about your future goals.
Yeah, so I'm kind of still really trying to figure that out, right? Like, it's a possibility that, again, up until just very recently, like, I didn't think existed, and I didn't think that I would be a person, like, in this world that would be capable of helping others create change in their lives in such a, like, life-changing way. But I am super excited to finish up and finish up my certification, and then really start exploring that with you a little bit more. I have 2 jobs. I would like to not have 2 jobs. Like, I think we can all agree that, you know, even one job, like, we just want to be rich and not have to work so much. But if I can do something where it's fulfilling and it's rewarding and it's giving back to my community and it's creating like positive impact, like, why would I want to do anything else, right? I think that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to not be so bound by like corporations and just like everybody else's rules for this like weird like 9-to-5 lifestyle that's just, it's just not as fun. And so I'm really opening myself up to the possibility of being able to have just more freedom, and still be able to feel fulfilled in what I do. So it's definitely something that I'm looking to explore with you a little bit more. And as far as just like personal goals, as far as like my fitness journey, like I'm still going. I like just seeing photos of like where like my muscle has like grown, I'm like, yes. Like, it's a whole new addiction. And so I'm definitely constantly evolving within the realm of this world, and just trying to figure out how I can continue to improve myself, improve the quality of my life, and just making sure that like my energy all around is protected and that my circle is full of like-minded people, and just kind of staying on this journey of like balancedness, right? Like, yeah. That's the ultimate goal, to just feel balanced overall.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with that last comment you said, right? a supportive group. Right? I think that is the biggest change for many people. When they finally become part of a group that supports them, a community that encourages them to do better, right? When everybody's in your group trying to make better moves, right? Everybody's pushing to become better. There's a point where you feel like left out, and you're like, I better get with the program, or I'm going to be an outsider the entire time. And so, my advice for many of you out there is find that group where people support you and challenge you to become better. Because if you're not being challenged on a day-to-day basis, you're not progressing. And just another thing to think about, a lot of people believe that a coach has a specific look, right? I think the industry has marketed this specific look as what a coach should look like. And what a lot of people believe a coach should look like is obviously that ripped guy that has a six-pack, because on Instagram, that's what used to be the thing, right? You see a guy who's six-pack, he must know what he's doing because his body fat is really low. But it's not. A coach doesn't have a specific look. A coach has a specific mindset. And a coach has a specific intent. And I think that intent is to help others. And so as long as you're willing to commit the rest of your life to helping others, right? And do whatever it takes to find the answers. Being okay with not knowing, but finding the answers, right? It's okay to say, hey, I don't know, but I can figure out the answer for you. My intent is to help you. Bring all the resources to them. That's what a coach is, right? A person who can guide someone through the peaks and valleys. So I just want to say thank you for your time, and I hope that this helps a lot of people out there that are on the verge of whether they want to jump on the program or not, because I think the community aspect is what is helping Envision grow. That is our main focus. We want to bring a community together, a supportive community, right? I've seen that you started taking on the 14-day challenge. You took two more people onto your training day today, and I just see my community growing and connecting with each other, and it's an amazing feeling. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope that you can become part of our team soon.
Maybe. Thank you. It's been fun. So thank you, really.